Thanks for joining us for our 2021 e-bike shootout. As part of our series this year, we're going to be reviewing each bike individually, leading up to our grand finale roundtable discussion. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Fezzari Wire Peak Pro. The Wire Peak Pro is a bike that we actually had at last year's roundup, and it was okay. It didn't really blow anyone's socks off, and we were not expecting a whole lot to change this year just because they went to a 29-inch wheel, but we were very wrong. The Fezzari Wire Peak Pro made some big steps in the off-season, and it is more capable than ever, and we're really excited to share with you guys where it stood up in our final roundtable discussion, so make sure you stay tuned for when that comes out. The Wire Peak Pro retails for $55.99. It is a 140/160 bike and weighs in at 51.4 pounds. It comes with a Shimano EP8 motor and a 504 battery. So not a huge battery, definitely some weight savings, but not going to have the range of some of the other bikes in the category this year. So again, this bike was part of our trail category, which is 150 millimeters and less of rear wheel travel. Up front, we've got a Fox Performance Elite fork and a Fox DPX2 Performance Elite rear shock. Again, there are some very impressive things going on inside that new shock. The new tune that Fezzari worked with Fox to get is night and day difference compared to last year's. So props for the hard work there, guys. It paid off. Drivetrain duties, Shimano XT 12 speed with Shimano XT brakes and 200 millimeter rotors. Again, we're going to say this every time, we are big fans of 200 mil rotors on e-bikes. We think they're absolutely mandatory equipment. So moving on to the Geo, our size large test bike was definitely on the shorter side. We'll say it was the more playful, nimble, sporty side. It has 451.7 millimeters of reach, a 634 mil stack height, and a 1,198 millimeter wheelbase. The chainstays are short at 434 millimeters, and the bike has a bottom bracket height of 346 mil. The seat-tube angle is steep at 75.5 degrees and 65.5 degrees at the head-tube angle. First off, like I said earlier, this bike impressed us in a big way. We were, not expecting it to be that big of a deviation from last year's bike, which was capable, but not a standout in such a packed field. The 29-inch wheel and new shock tune definitely made this bike come alive. It was a blast. The new EP8 motor gave it more power, a little more range, even though it's got the same battery size just due to efficiencies and a reduction in mechanical drag, software tunes, etc. But it was a really solid bike all around.
Really like this bike. Despite its lack of length in the wheelbase, I think it rides almost as well over rough terrain, just thanks to the suspension tune and a pretty solid front fork.
Standout features: playful, suspension, and snappy. It is supple and soft off the top. Big difference from last year again. It was capable when we got into some of the more high-speed, rough and rowdy descents in St. George, Utah. It was able to keep up, and it didn't quite hold its own against bikes that had like a 485 millimeter reach like the Commensal, but it didn't really hold us back a ton either. We felt like we were able to keep up and do what we needed to do. You just had to have a little more, courage to kind of keep that bike pointed and stay off the brakes. But if you did, the bike would do what you wanted it to.
So when you're looking at a large, that 451 mil reach, it's on the smaller side. So I think if I was to go out and purchase this bike, I would actually go XL.
Okay.
But on that point too, in some of those climbs, being a not very good technical climber, that shorter wheelbase allowed me to kind of skate in and out of those kind of rock spines and corners, lift the front wheel, but also not get the wheel lifted when I didn't want it to, which I think that seat tube angle definitely helps.
Where it excelled over some of the longer bikes is that you could maintain speed better through tighter terrain. It was a little more jibby, poppy, and playful. If you wanted to find little trailside features to pop off of, this thing would do it. It was fun to manual. It was great to do techie little climbs, navigate tight switchbacks, and at $55.99 for a pretty solid build, it's a really great value as well. Now, some of the dislikes on the bike are, a couple riders complained that it was a little bit noisy, a little louder than some of the other bikes. That's, I guess, a little bit of personal perspective, I'd say. The Shimano systems do make a little bit of noise just from that clutch. The cable rattle wasn't too bad in my opinion, but some guys thought it was enough to make a point of. So we also all didn't get along with the bar grip spec. Again, fairly minor change, I guess, and if you're spending $55.99, that leaves you a little bit extra cash to do some personal upgrades. Battery size was something that we all wished was bigger. 630 would be great to see on this bike because it's so fun and capable that you really do want to take it out deeper, further, and faster. I think this bike's going to be great for the general consumer or the discerning rider who knows his terrain and knows how he likes to ride and play. The slightly shorter reach will be an issue of concern for very tall riders, so you may want to go and size up. However, it's definitely not so short to where you feel squirmish or uncomfortable or cramped on the bike. It is just going to make it a little bit more playful, a little more fun, and easy to maneuver through tight terrains. Overall, that is the Fezzari Wire Peak Pro, a very strong contender that surprised us all in our shootout this year. So stay tuned for our final episode where we compare this against all 12 bikes and see where it stacks up in the field. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you out on the trails.